welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing good. Before we get started, go ahead, click like, hit subscribe, click the bell. There you go. I've said it. We're done with that. Don't have to worry about it anymore. So thanks for tuning in. I always appreciate you guys hanging out and watching the videos and the chats and the mini lessons, or whatever is around. So I thought we'd talk about something pretty cool today. Comes out of a comment, like the last few I've done about modes were from somebody's comment. I think even the last couple lessons I did before that, I sort of mined them from the comment section where, I always ask what you guys want to hear about or what you'd like to hear me talk about. And I really appreciate when you say topics, because it gives me great ideas for videos. But the last two, we talked about modes. I talked about my sort of approach, how I think about them, why I think they work, and the context. And I got to thinking about that, and I realized that maybe that doesn't matter if you don't have a context in general about maybe like when people talk about keys, or how sort of the scale relates to the chords you're playing, like why you would play the chords you play in a particular song, right? Like what makes chords sound good together. And I guess I take for granted that is just part of everybody's mindset when they play, because it was such a part of my learning process, So like when I started playing, I was an older teenager, 16, 17 years old. And then I fell into really early on teaching beginner guitar lessons, totally sort of by accident. But I was sort of fascinated by the music theory, what I called music theory at the time. But I didn't read, I wasn't, didn't go to school for it, none of that stuff. I was pretty much self-taught. But I just loved the idea of like why all these shapes and patterns work. So a big part of me figuring out like, hey, what the heck happens here was figuring out about, scales and the formula for the major scale, and then how you build chords and how you harmonize chords there. And the approach that I sort of take to improvising stems a lot from that. So thought we would just chat about that in general, because I think if you understand that, if you understand, sort of maybe, I won't say what a key is. I will say how I think about what a key is, where the harmony for stuff comes from. Then I think a lot of things like modes, like the Dorian mode, or we talked about Mixolydian Dorian, why you use those, where it comes from, how it all ties together. Because for me, you have to have like a system for things, right? Like it's one thing to learn a lick or to learn a scale and to say you can use it in these particular places, but until you have like a system of everything, like your theory of everything sort of kind of deal, it never all comes together in this like cohesive way where you can just play, right? So that's what I'm going to try to cram into about 15, 20 minutes. Maybe that's ambitious, but maybe it's 30 minutes. Who knows? But let's talk about that. Why do certain chords, to me, it just seems like it's a nothing. Like this is a elementary thing, but I can tell, I forget, and I know better because I have a lot of students that I see for private lessons, and just the comments on videos, the comments on the modes videos, like that's, it is maybe not as common as I think. And even if it is common knowledge for you, it's always nice to hear other people's thoughts on it. So anyways, so here's mine, right? So most of us, we start when we learn scales, we learn to improvise, and we learn what chords go with what. We learn pentatonic scale shapes, these things. So like that's G major pentatonic, right? If you play that in the right rhythm, it's minor. Right, so that's just a G major pentatonic. I'm gonna turn my guitar down so it doesn't do the weird clipping thing on my voice. But anyways, so there's those notes are G, A, B, D, E, and then you're back to G. If you wanted to make it minor pentatonic, it would just be E minor pentatonic. It'd be those same notes, except we would start on the E, and we did on the E, so it'd be E, G, A, B, D, E. Now I'm not worried about telling you how to play that, because that's not the point of this, right? If you don't know the pentatonic scale, go find a video on that first and come back to this later when that makes sense. Those are pentatonic scales. And sometimes my critique of sort of like well, not my critique, but my problem with the way a lot of people tend to be taught is they'll learn that and that, oh, this goes over the key of blah, 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 with never a why or like an explanation beyond just learning the pattern. By the way, I'm wearing my very cool Guitar Hunter hat today. Pal Jeremy Shepard, he came by Casino. I don't know, I guess it's been a few weeks now. Made some videos. We made some videos with him. Those are probably all out in the world, so you've probably seen him at this point. But anyways, he has really cool hats. His hat and the shirts he brought, fantastic. They were fantastic material. I really, really love the hat, actually. So go buy his merch. Go watch his channel. You probably already do. He's much bigger than this very small channel. So, but anyways, he's a cool dude. It was fun hanging out with him. So anyways, not to get sidetracked, but back to the pentatonic shape. A lot of times you learn what a pentatonic shape is and you learn to play it in a couple positions. And maybe that's it. And you guys have heard me harp and preach on learning it in all 5 shapes. I have a video about that. Go check it out. All 5 shapes of the pentatonic scale. How to switch from pentatonic to diatonic. That's what we're going to talk about right now, right? So the next step in my brain, logically, once you can play that G major pentatonic shape, is playing an actual major scale with that, which is just, before, I say it was G, A, B, D, E, G. Well, if you notice, we skipped the C. We had no C represented. We had no F sharp represented. We need both of those. Those are both pretty important. So yeah, so we're going to add them back in. We're going to have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Now, if you know anything about music at all, theory or scales, you probably know they all have a formula, and it's just intervals and whole and half steps. So a major scale is always the note you start on, so like G major in this particular case, then a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, another whole step, and a half step. So again, that's whole, half, whole, half. There's your G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Now, I can do it right here. Or I can do it right here. Doesn't really matter. Again, the point of this is not how to play a major scale or a pentatonic scale. It's just the thought process behind it, right? So anyways, once I have those notes and I have that pattern's really pleasing to your ear, right? Like everybody can hum the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that thing, right? All those notes, they're gonna sound good together. If you hear someone in the corner humming or playing guitar unplugged, my son Elijah is in the corner back there sitting nicely. He's only 7, by the way, but he's doing a fantastic job. And he's like, Dad, I'm gonna sit out here while you make this video, and I might learn something, which makes my heart happy. So yeah, I feel like that's worth. If you hear a random thing in the background, that's him. Don't worry about it. We come out and jam here all the time. A lot of times when I get home from Casino, we come out here and we have a little jam session before dinner or after dinner. So we've had one of those prior to this video. Anyways, carrying right along. So you got those notes in the major scale from that pattern: 2 whole steps and a half step, 3 whole steps and a half step. Now again, I'm flying through this, so if all this stuff is foreign, then maybe you need to go watch videos about that and then come back to this. But if that makes sense, if you're still tracking with me, I think again, what happens a lot of times when you learn these things is you learn that pattern. Maybe you can play it. Maybe you can play it everywhere. Maybe you can noodle that scale up and down over chords, but you have no idea why it sounds good over certain chords, right? Most people, I dare say, do know that every one of those notes, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, that you can play a chord for every one of those notes, right? So like you could go G, and then like A minor, and then like B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp diminished, and then you'd be back to G. So like every one of those letters we can turn into a chord. And that's where I think some of the mystery starts to happen. So here's what was a light bulb moment for me a very long time ago that I take for granted now. So if you've heard about harmony, right? It's just different notes paired together from that scale that they live in together. So in this case, it's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. What makes it unique is that it has that one F sharp. I'm not even too worried about that right now, but that's our G. Those are our notes in G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. I think of sort of like the scale as the single notes I can play. And in my brain, the key is those chords. And it's more than that because it takes into effect like the tonal center and all those things. I'm simplifying here because I think it's an aha moment once you get this simplified version of this. But once you do that, once this makes sense, you can add in all the exceptions or different rules or secondary dominance or however, whatever else you want to add in, whatever, flat sevens and all that kind of good stuff. But anyways, so we got those 7 notes. Those are our notes, right? The reason that it makes a pattern, and there's a pattern. Music, I say all the time to my students, it's just the patterns on patterns on patterns. If you see patterns or if you look for patterns, I think it helps you a ton when you're learning music stuff. But the first pattern we learned was that whole half step, whole half step, 2 whole steps and a half step, 3 whole steps and a half step. The next one that most people do learn is that the chords then are a major chord, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, back to G major. So it goes a major chord, a minor chord, a minor chord, a major, a minor, a diminished chord. And when people talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or like a 1, 4, 5 progression or a 6, 4, 5, 1 progression, that's what they mean. It's just the chords, the numbers correlate to the chord. And if you know that, then okay, a 4 chord is typically 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's a major chord. A 5 chord, 99% of the time, is a major chord. A 6 chord, assuming we're talking major keys, 6 chord is the relative minor and it's a minor chord. If you had a 7, it'd be a diminished chord, or you have a flat 7, that's a major chord, or a 2 and a 3 are going to be minor chords. The 1 obviously is going to be a major chord and a major key. So it's that kind of stuff, right? But it's figuring out where that comes from and why. And then I think it makes more sense. I think that helps you learn your neck and your fretboard, knowing where the notes are, knowing what notes are in every chord so that you can target them in the scale. Here's why. Here's how. So all you have to do to make a chord from every one of those notes, all of our normal chords, right? And again, there are, learning music is like learning, grammar in English. There's always an exception, right? There's always things that are slightly different, so don't take this for 1,000% of the time every time when I talk about a rule like this. But for the most part, our chords, they're just 2/3. Here's what I mean. G's the first note, right? So if I want to make a G chord based on my G major scale, and again, those, as far as we're concerned right now, those are the only 7 notes that exist. So I can make a chord from the G, but I got to use notes in that scale. So when I mean they're thirds, so like G is where I'm starting. A is the second. It's the second note from G. And then B is the third. So my first third is G. I'm skipping A and I got B. Then my next note, I'm skipping C, because that would be a 4th, to D is a 5th. So the chord is the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. So the first note, skip the 2nd note, go to the 3rd note. Then I'm skipping the 4th note, go to the 5th note. So I got the 1st note, the 3rd note, the 5th note. Now a lot of people know that, right? That a major chord is the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th of its major scale. But I don't think it clicks for a lot of people that you can do that all the way down the scale. So for example, when I get to A, it's not going to be A, B, and D like the other one was G, B, and D. But now I'm starting on an A, and I'm going to skip the next note, which this time is B, and this time I'm going to play a C, because it goes A, and then the 3rd relative to that major scale is C. Then I'm going to skip the 4th, which would be my D, and play an E, so my A minor would be A, C, E. So I had G, B, D for a G chord, G major. Then I got A, C, E. That is A minor. That's an arpeggio, right? So I know my scale. Starting off G, B, D. Then my A is going to be A, skip B to C, skip D to E. Then if I go down to my B, right? This time I'm going to skip C. I'm going to play D. B, D. Then I'm going to skip E and I'm going to play my F sharp. There's my B minor. If I go to C, I'm going to skip D and play E. C, E. I'm going to skip F. I'm going to play G. C, E, G. Or C, E, G. So by now, if you're doing this with me, and I'm not telling you like where I'm playing it, because that's not the point. The point is, where these chords come from. If you know the scale shapes, you could literally, you skip every other note and you end up with that chord. And if you know that the scale goes in order, which it does, alphabetical order, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, then you know what you're skipping. And you should be, if you know those scale shapes, you should be practicing them saying G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. That's such a better way to learn your fretboard, by the way, than just going, okay, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, because we don't play like that chromatically, you know what I mean? So like, if you learn that all the way down and then you're in like the heat of the moment playing, you're not gonna remember that that's a G. But if you play the scale a million times and you realize that that's all your root notes, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, I think you got a better shot at remembering that's G. But anyways, that's an aside. That was free. That was a free tidbit. So yeah. So, all that to say, my guitar is totally, actually, not my guitar. This is Sean's guitar. If you guys watch the casino, you might know we talk about Sean sometimes. Sean works at casino. He keeps everything running. He does a lot of the inventory, and just all sorts of things around the shop. He was kind enough to loan me this SG, which is pretty sweet. It's like it's like a 2013 61 reissue, but you know, little maestro, which is cool. So yeah, he's not been playing it very much lately. I'm kind of jonesing for an SG, so he's like, here, take this, borrow it, see if you really like it. I do really like it. In fact, he's gonna have trouble getting it back. But we'll talk about that later. Anyways, so if you can do that up and down your guitar, you know, if you can go G, B, D, A, C, E, you know what I mean? And then like B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, you know? Then you got your E, G, B, there's your E minor. If you wanted to do it from your F sharp, that's kind of the weirdest one because it ends up being a diminished chord. But it's easy. It's F, A, C, F sharp diminished, you know? And then you're right back to your G, B, D. Not only will you start to see cool chord shapes there, you could carry that down the neck. If you practice that a little bit, then you might take this triad shape, this little F shape, and go G, okay? G, B, D. Then you might know that your F sharp is A, C, E. You know that your B minor, I might have said A sharp right there. I meant A minor if I said that. Someone left me a very mean comment the other day because I said, or whatever, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's okay. If you're watching, I feel like you do. I apologize. Apologize for being fast and loose sometimes. Not really. I actually will continue to do that. Anyways. I can tell Elijah's getting bored in the corner because I can hear his guitar more. So hopefully I didn't come through too much. Anyways, so, you know, on the G, G, B, D, every other note, right? G, I skipped A, there's my B. I skipped C, there's my D. When I go to A minor right here, which the G, I will show you what I'm playing right here just so this is great practice, right? G, B, D. And that is, I'm going, starting on the D string on every single one, going the G string and then the B string, I'm going 5, 4, 3, G, B, D. Then my number 2 chord, my A minor in this case, always going to be a minor chord because when you skip that note, like on the G, right? When I skip, because the pattern is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Every time when I do it from the first note, it's going to be a major third to get to B, which means it's going to be 2 whole steps, right? And then just a minor third to get to the D, which is going to make it sound like a major chord. So if that first jump is 2 whole steps, that's my major third. It's going to be a major chord, like G to B. But if it's A to C, where it's a whole step and then a half step, if it falls in that kind of pattern, or half step and a whole step, the chord will be minor. That's why A and B are minor in this case, right? Because like if I was doing an A major scale, it would be A, B, C sharp, D. So an A major chord would be A, C sharp, E. When I flat that third, and again, if you don't know this, maybe you need to go watch a video on, you know, the formula for major and minor chords. I'll probably do one of those at some point soon. I would do it in this video, but the video would end up being like an hour and a half long and no one would watch it. But anyways, so all that to say, that's why, it just depends on the pattern of those chords. So anyways, 5, 4, 3, G, B, D, right? Then A, and then you literally got C, E, that's 7, 5, 5 for A minor. Coming down to B minor, so far, I'm going G, A, B, so, just kidding, G, A, B. So my B is gonna be 9, 7, 7, right? So 5, 4, 3, G major. 7, 5, 5, A minor, A, C, E. B minor is going to be 9, 7, 7, and it's B. I skipped the C and I got D. I skipped the E and I got F sharp, all right? So I'm starting to think, if you do this, and after a while, hey, a G chord is G, B, and D. An A minor chord is A, C, and E. A B minor chord is B, D, and F sharp, right? Then you get over to C, and it's going to be 10, 9, 8, C, E, G, every other letter, right? And it's got to follow the sharps and the flats in the scale that we're playing on. So these chords sound good together because they're literally built from the same stuff, from the same junk. I always tell my kids it's like a family, right? Like you're all built from the same DNA. The chords are built from the same notes in the scale, right? Now we're talking about the notes in a major scale, but it really doesn't matter. We could take a harmonic minor scale and do this same thing, and we would come up with 7 different chords. We could take a mode like Dorian mode. We're starting from a different place, right? But we'd come up with the same chords if we did A Dorian as we do in G, right? Which is why we would choose to play A Dorian, not out of A minor, A natural minor, which is the same as C, right? So that's what I want you to see is these chords are happening because they come out of a particular scale. The chords are just the scale harmonized, right? So, I said the C. We left off on the C. 10, 9, 8, C, E, G. Then the D is on the 12th fret, and it literally is 12, 11, 10. It's D, F sharp, A, all right? Guitar E minor, and it is E, G, B. Really close to the G chord, if you haven't noticed. That's why not why it's really minor, but, G is G, B, D. The E minor has the G and the B in there, and then it's only one whole step difference between the other notes. So a G and an E minor, they're really close together. There you go, E, G, B, all right? If you make it a D instead, G major. E instead, E minor. Anyways, another thing to think about. Over to the F sharp, it is a different shape than all the others because it's diminished. This is why, because we got to use the notes, right? We got to go F sharp, A, C, and then we're right back to G, B, D. So you can practice that. You can go G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, back to G, B, D, blah, G, B, D. And I did a triad video on this where I would play, and then I would try to imagine the scale underneath where I was. I don't remember if I was on B minor or D, or C, doesn't matter. But you see what I'm saying? Like I could play the G. And there's my A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp diminish, G. I should work something out. I thought about that more. That was not good, but you get the idea, right? You could just kind of, and again, that's not necessarily the most melodic way to do anything or have a cool chord progression, but the idea there is not that. It's just to get in your brain, what are the notes in the chord? So that if you have a chord progression where you're going G, it's G, B, and D. And so then maybe you might know, okay, I'm gonna land on a D over a G because there's a D in there. Or I'm gonna land on this B, and not just this G all the time. Right? That sounds really cool. That's kind of cooler in a lot of cases than just playing over, a G chord. And I gotta land on a G. There's my D. You know what I mean? And then maybe it jumps to A minor. Actually, let's don't do A minor because let's do it out of order. So your G, G, B, and D. And then maybe we jump to D. And you need to know that's D. Well, you don't need to know, but it's helpful to know D, F sharp, and A. So over that D, maybe you land on an A. Like there's an A, right? Here's my D chord. That A sounds really cool over it. You don't have to play a D every time over the D chord. Or maybe you want to land on the F sharp. It's really cool, right? And then the E minor. E minor, you might want to land on the G right there. You know what I mean? So whatever, you know, it's just if you can think through it that way, it is super helpful. Yeah, I feel like that's like the worst playing I've done a video in a while. You're welcome. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it because yeah, that's what we do. The point was to talk through it, not to play amazing jaw-dropping, Instagram-worthy things. But anyways, that's good practice, you know? Just think about your major scale. Go through, remember that you can start on any note in that major scale and skip every other till you get 3 notes. And there's your basic triad, your basic chord, whether it's major, minor, or diminished, for that key. And that's how I think about the chords in a key, and everything changes from there. Obviously, if you're playing blues and they're all sevenths, you know, we could do a whole nother thing. It's another pattern about when you add a seventh, whether it's a dominant seventh or a major seventh. Like, you know, the 1 would be a major seventh, the 2 and the 3 would be minor chords, but they're dominant sevenths, you know, so like minor chords with minor sevenths. The 4 is a major seventh. The 5 is a dominant seventh or a minor seventh, even though it's a major chord, right? So like, for example, like G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D 7, E minor 7, F sharp diminished. So, you know, yeah, on and on and on. But, you know, but it all falls into, on those, the major scale. And then blues breaks the rules a little bit because instead of it being G major 7 and C major 7, it would be G7, C7, D7. That's why we skip over to the G minor pentatonic. And it's the blues scale, you know what I mean? And we don't just play the major scale over it because it doesn't fit. The scale is not fitting the notes and the chords anymore. So think about that. Remember, your scales used over chords are arbitrary, or the chords with the scales are not arbitrary. They work together. They're made together. The scale makes the chords. That's what dictates it. That's what dictates the mode. That's why you use the Dorian mode. That will make way more sense, by the way, if you go watch my video on the Dorian mode or Mixolydian or whatever. So those are the last 2 to come out. I hope that all made sense and wasn't just like super rambly. If it was, I apologize. Hopefully it was a good time anyways. But yeah, thanks again for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. If this made sense and was life-changing, feel free to throw some money in the old Venmo/PayPal tip jar. Got a couple affiliate links in the description. Check those out. It's on 2FX. Discount code for MagSlide. A couple hat companies that I dig. Have discount codes for those. All those will be down in there. Don't forget, like I said in the beginning, hit like and subscribe. Click the bell. That helps me a ton. If you really, really enjoyed it, you share this on your social media or whatever. That helps me a ton. It gets your friends to subscribe. So anyways, yeah, appreciate that. Enjoy making these videos. Hopefully I can continue and make them more frequently. I'm toying with the idea of the members thing. So maybe if you have some ideas of what kind of, like if I was going to do a members thing, what kind of content would you like to see? Would you want to do like live stream lessons that are only available for members, or like, I don't know. I'm not going to do it until I come up with some things that I think are cool. So, you know, if you have some cool ideas, that might help that process along, assuming that you even care about that or want to see it. So anyways, there you go. I think that is it. We hit the 30-minute mark. Gosh darn it. Did not mean to be that long, but hey, it is what it is. Thank you again. See you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.